Thank you for sticking around on a Friday afternoon. My name is Karen Andersen, and if you didn't know, I'm going to be talking about zero trust based on my personal dating history. So it's intended to be lighthearted and fun. I hope you find it that way too. If not, like I said, I do have $100 bills for anyone to laugh at my jokes. So with that, let's get started. Here you go. Yep, it's true, I'm a Karen. Yeah, that's funny. I work for Worldwide Technology. I'm a technical solution architect. I've been consulting for a long time. I've spent a lot of time in electronic discovery, some pretty big investigations, data breaches, and it's a lot of fun to see what people have on their hard drive. Some of them I can't unsee. And I really want to encourage each of you to get involved in the community, which some of you are doing today. Thank you. I'm also on the board of InfraGard. I've been really fortunate to go through the FBI Citizen Academy, which for me was really a career highlight. It was fantastic. And I enjoy public speaking, giving back to the community, volunteering, those types of things, and I really love a good rabbit hole. And I really also want to say thank you to the last speaker because I have a rescue dog and she has a chip, so I appreciate that. So my family had a farm that was in the family for over 100 years. Now, I wasn't at the farm for 100 years. I'm not that old, but the farm was around. So as you look at this picture, I'm going to say I'm probably in about second grade. And when you see the background there, it's because it's from about 1920. Again, I wasn't here in 1920, but the farm was. It was up by Brainerd. Anybody hang out in Brainerd as a kid? Remember Paul Bunyan Land? Yeah. So my great uncle actually helped build Paul Bunyan Land. And whenever I went to Paul Bunyan Land, it was a really good day. It was really special. And it was really magic. And the thing about Paul Bunyan Land, if you've never been, is you would go and you'd go through this little hut and they divided you into two lines. The kids went into one line and the parents went in the other line. And you'd come out and there was this little ranger station and at the end of it is Paul Bunyan and he's larger than freaking life. Huge. And as you're a little kid, as you can see, so big. And I would come out, and there would be Paul Bunyan, and he had these really bad mechanics, and he would go, "Hello, Karen," and that's all he did. But for me, it was freaking magic. Paul Bunyan was real. He knew me. He knew my name. And the coolest thing is, you probably can't tell in the picture, but I didn't have one of my front teeth, because I fell down the stairs when I was 2 and knocked all the roots out. And so I've heard that stupid song, "All I Want for Christmas," like a million times, right? And Paul would always say to me, "I can see you still don't have your front tooth." And I'm like, I matter. And honestly, it was like the best day because I was with my family. We were at an amusement park. Paul Bunyan knew me, and it was sheer magic. And that feeling was so special. If you think back to your childhood and you think about how it made you feel, it was really special. And it wasn't until I was probably about 17, and I'm being sincere here, when I thought about it and it dawned on me, wait a minute, there's 2 lines. That's how they knew who I was, because when my parents went through the line to pay, scribble a little note, her name's Karen, and she's missing a front tooth. I'm like, because it was so special, why would I stop to think about it and go, wait, I just was all in. I totally believed it. I also had 2 older brothers, and my parents told them, if you tell her Santa's not real, he's not bringing you gifts either. So I grew up full on, full in. Let's do this. So special. From Minnesota. Everyone's nice, right? Yeah. I was raised to believe that everyone's nice. Of course they are. Everyone's nice, right? For sure. If somebody does something wrong, give them a second chance. Dude, you just stole my wallet. Okay, I'm not mad. So-and-so's a good person. Oh, really? If you vouch for someone, you just gave me your word. I'm all in, full on believe it. Wow. Jeffrey Dahmer, he's a good, okay, I'm in, that's cool. You vouch for somebody, I'm buying it. Trust somebody until they give you a reason not to. I'm a nice person. You could ask a couple people in the room here. Everyone else must also be nice, right? That's nice. So really, this is how I went out into the world. Look out, world. So this was, I'm going to say, maybe around, there's some big hair going on. You can do the math. Yes, I know I could be your parent. That's all right. So you go out into the world and you think everybody's nice. That's a really bad way to go into the world. So that's how I hit it. Let's go big. So I'm out there thinking, oh, okay, that's cool. So you start to hit the little dating scene, doing your thing. Nothing's more fun than hanging out with your friends, a little clubbing, whatever you're doing. And you meet somebody you think is nice. Maybe they're kind of special. Whoever that person is to you, that's cool, it's your business. But for me, I met this guy, thought he was nice. So this was back before, believe it or not, cell phones. And so if you were going to go visit somebody, when you decided to visit, you're committed, because you're not going to find out till you get there that something might be different. Now, this particular person lived about 20, 25 minutes away. It's a weekend evening. I go clubbing with my friends. All right, I'll go come hang out with you. So I make the drive. I get over there. It's dark out, and I see this little note taped to the front door. And the note says, Karen. Oh, hey, that's me. I can hear music going on in the background, and I look around, and I'm like, well, this is kind of weird. So I take the note off of the door, very carefully open it, and read it. And it says, Karen, something came up with my brother. I'm not going to be able to hang tonight. Sorry about that. Wait, what? Is he in the hospital? Is he dead? Because it better be good. So I look around. It's dark out. Nobody's seen me. So I think, I might have just been had. So what do? I'm going to play your game. Fold it right back up. Put it in the envelope. Don't put a wrinkle in the tape. Put it back on the door. Look around. Nobody sees me. Go back home quietly. A little ticked. I'm not going to acknowledge it. So the next time I talk to him, he curses me out because I stood him up. I stood you up? Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I forgot I had to babysit. I'm going to put that in my back pocket. Now I'm going to remember. Maybe you're not nice, but I kind of liked him, so give him a second chance. So he says to me one day, hey, we can totally hang, but just so you know, whatever you do, don't call my home tonight. Okay. So he brings it up about 4 more times throughout the course of our conversation, and he says, whatever you do, don't call my house tonight. Okay. So I hang out with my friends. I get a little liquid encouragement. We're having some fun. You give me an ultimatum, I'm taking it spot on. Let's do this. So I get home. It's back in the time when we had the old landlines. Make a phone call. Somebody picks up. Of course somebody picks up. It's a woman. Who's this? Who's this? I'm not sure. And I said, is so-and-so home? Who are you? Who are you? I'm his girlfriend. I'm like, oh, that's funny because I've been seeing him. Well, that's not possible. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm delusional. I said, no, I have been seeing him for some time. Nope, I'm always with him. I'm like, well, I know you're not with him on these days because I was with them. And that would make it really awkward. But then I felt bad because I don't really want to be part of somebody else's sad story in life, and I am a believer in karma, and I wouldn't do this intentionally. So I said to her, I'm like, you know what? We're both being played here, so let's make a deal, shall we? I'm going to give you my information, and when you talk to him, you can call me back. We'll compare notes. He's playing both of us. No. Wait, what? I don't want to. That really threw me for a loop. I'm like, you don't want to know if the person you're going to verify with is telling you the truth? Obviously, we have issues with that already, and I do feel bad. Nope, I don't want to know who you are, and I don't want to know. I'm like, I respect that. So I hung up. He called me the next day at work and chewed me out for what I did to her. What I did to her? So I think you have a hard time looking in the mirror. That's between you and her. Good luck. Didn't talk to him again. I honestly felt bad because, again, I don't want to do this to somebody. I am a nice person, but I feel bad even if I didn't intentionally. So I got a little bit wiser. I do learn lessons. And I started learning to ask questions like this. Hey, are you married? No. Is anyone out there believe you're married? What would she say? Would somebody else say otherwise? And some people would laugh, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, that's the real answer. And then I would ask, is there anyone else out there who would be upset based on the answer you gave me? Because I just want to make sure. Because again, I don't want to be part of somebody else's sad story. So time goes on. I'm focused on my career. I was doing some stuff out in Washington, D.C., and I was working in electronic discovery. I've seen more laptops than you can fathom, and I've gotten to work on some really big stuff. Right time, right place, wrong time, wrong place, I don't know. I had a heck of a lot of fun. So I'm walking through the airport in DC. Phone rings. I answer it, and somebody says, is this Karen? Well, what do you think? You called me. And I hear a couple people talking in the background, and another woman gets on the phone, and she goes, I've been reading some emails that are inappropriate. Inappropriate for whom? I'm so-and-so's fiance. And I'm like, oh, this again? I go, I'm really sorry to hear that, but let me explain. According to him, you don't exist. So I don't see any inappropriateness with these emails. However, what you're doing is actually illegal because you've accessed somebody else's mailbox, which is belonged to by a company. And I said, but secondly, I do feel bad. This is a bad situation. And she's like, well, I'm his fiance. Okay, again, I'm going to make the same offer. Sad that this comes up again. I'm going to give you my information. Well, you already have my phone number because you just called me. You can just save it, talk to him, and we'll compare notes. No. I don't want to. I'm like, well, you already know what you need to know because you've been reading some emails, and they're business emails, so I know pretty much to keep it PG. I'm not really that person. I might want to run for president someday, so I don't know. I did feel bad. So I started to think about why wouldn't you want to trust me? And it made me wonder what makes people gullible. I'm pretty gullible, and I wonder what's this about. So I actually looked it up. The way our minds process is there's a stage 1 and a stage 2, and this Nobel Award-winning psychologist, he actually noted there's 2 stages of processing in your brain. And when people scroll social media and they only read the headline, it's the short-term, no decision, no thinking, and you just buy into it as fact. But also, if you've never had anything bad happen to you, things have been going pretty good, it's anecdotal, and you just think, oh, things must be good. Well, that helps me understand my childhood, nothing bad happened. But it also really helps you understand why business email compromise, romance scams, all of these things are always the highest rated on the FBI's fraud report. IC3.gov if you want to look for yourself, or if you're ever a victim, it's really an important website to know. But what I thought was really interesting is even when people are faced with the truth, they first deny it. And I was actually having a conversation yesterday with somebody, and I think until something bad happens to you, you can't actually fathom that bad things happen. And that explains a lot to me because until something bad happens to you, you don't really change that mindset and you want to believe and you have that special day. Why would you want that to go away? So to me, I thought that was really interesting. So time goes on and you keep working in your career, and a lot of you have had some really great points as we've had this conference. And so I just kept focusing on my career, not so awesome at relationships. I do try to be nice. And so here I'm going to segue a little bit. So as I said, I focused on my career. I kept working in electronic discovery, and I worked for a company that had 5 different business units, and one of them had a cyber business unit, and they did investigations and cybersecurity and data breaches. And when you show up and you do the best job that you can, people start to pull you in. And I started working on some really cool stuff, and I love to be entertained. If I'm not entertained, I become a handful. And it was really fun. And so I got just so excited, always learning more, seeing what else can I learn, always being curious. I've gotten to work on some really big high-profile data breaches, and we actually worked on an investigation, and people would pull me in, and so I started then moving on, not just from the electronic side, discovery, litigation, and strategy, now to that cyber side. And when you can re-engineer a data breach or understand how this happens, what happens after the fact, how do you report to the federal government, how do these things happen, and you're sitting next to the people who are hands on keyboard, it's a lot of fun. And I don't have kids, so when it was on a Sunday night at 8 o'clock and they needed someone, hey, pack a suitcase, go, and I'll tell you what you're going to do. That was so fun. We actually got to work on the first prosecuted counterfeit food product prosecuted by the DOJ. We had people going all across the United States, breaking into industrial parks, cutting down fences, doing all kinds of crazy shit, and it was a ball. But you go on and you keep learning. And so this actually brings me to zero trust. I'm going to give you another analogy because I think sometimes we have to break this stuff down, and not that all of you aren't sharp. I'm sure you're incredibly sharp. But one way I learned zero trust is, do you remember trick-or-treating? You come back from trick-or-treating and you have this big cache of candy and you dump it out on the floor. That's what I did. I don't know if you did. You dump all your candy out and you start organizing it based on, this is my favorite kind of candy and it's chocolate. This one over here is that stupid orange and black peanut butter kiss that's probably 5 years old and nobody wants it. My dad can have that without asking, right? So then over here's other things that are kind of okay, and I started to rank them based on what mattered to me. And so I laid it out on the floor, start to organize. I don't know why. I thought it was interesting, and analyze, and okay. So what I actually just described for you is a zero trust strategy, because what it is you lay out your control plane, and it's based on how you organize the things that matter to you. But let's think about that. How many companies, we all have the risk register that nobody ever talks about because I think it's probably blank. What really matters to you? And you have to think about that, and you have to have a strategy, and you have to think about how are you going to organize it. And based on how you decide to organize it, you can do different things like segmentation. But the other thing is now, once upon a time, we were all in a building, and they call it the old castle and moat. If you can cross the moat, you're in the building, everything's great. That's not what happens in zero trust. So now you're taking everything that's happening, and it's going to be in real time, and you have to make decisions. And you have over here the policy decision point. The way that computers think, you have to tell them. So you have a policy so it can make a determination, and you have a policy engine. For this to work in real time, you have to have this thought out. It has to be able to process, but you have to work on policies. And nobody wants to work on policy because it's not the sexy, glamorous stuff. But you ask companies, and I've done this for a living, do you have an incident response plan? Yeah, I absolutely do. They give you the big smile, and you ask them again, can I get a copy of your incident response plan? Yeah, absolutely, Karen. Thanks. Gotcha. Ask them again, so are you going to send me that incident response plan? There's no incident response plan. You got to realize, just because somebody smiles and says yes, don't fall for it. So the thing is when you start to do this in real time, in order to get access, you have to be able to pass through, you have to go through authentication and authorization, and you're taking away anything that's this blind trust, hence the name Zero Trust. And I'm sure all of you know some piece of this, but you have to do all of this in real time, and that gets exciting. So breaking it down into the zero trust principles it's making sure that there's no implicit, don't walk out into the world blindly and think everyone is nice. Imagine if you let everything on your network just because you thought they were nice without asking. I think people do that now. So even once you're in, it's no longer this castle and moat. You're going to have to make sure it's constantly rechecking. It's this constantly rechecking. So just because you got in doesn't mean that I'm going to no longer pay attention to you. It's also based on least privilege. And then authentication and authorization. Authentication is, am I who I say I am? Boy, I could have used some of those tricks earlier on. And then authorization, making sure that everything is enforced, including connections, machines, service accounts. You want to do some fun shit? Mess with somebody's service account. Half the time they won't even notice it. That's a lot of fun. Now you start to think about machine to machine, and there's some really great ways that you can start to protect things. But the other thing you need to realize is you're also using things like risk profiles. Had I actually thought about having some values, what mattered to me, thinking of that big picture strategy, and making sure that I could vet, hey, what's important? Is this working? And having some of that logic when I went out into the world thinking everyone was nice would have been really helpful. But also as you think about these risk profiles, now you start incorporating some of the things you've touched upon already, user behavioral analytics, the time travel, any of those different things, but also understanding what are some of these device behaviors if I haven't seen it do this before. And so I think about some of the breaches we hear about. How did you not notice that 53 terabytes of data went missing and then was for free, and now you got off without having to do any more time? To me, that's utterly shocking. I think most of the world doesn't even realize what happened on Monday with WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. That's some pretty big damage. But also thinking about the amount of data that's been exfiltrated that people didn't notice. So these are the things that we're trying to end. And also thinking about all sensitive data being encrypted, whether it's in transport or rest. That would be really helpful. And also taking all of these events, making sure they're logged. If you've ever worked in an incident, you want to go back to that log and see what happened. And you also want to make sure for people doing PAM, privileged access management, if you're doing session monitoring, they don't like that feel because it feels very big brotherish, but sometimes I'm trying to help you because if you make a mistake, we can go back and check it and correct it. But secondly, if something else happens, having that recording can be really critical in trying to figure it out. At the bottom of this is that policy management and making sure that it's centrally distributed, and how you break out that enclave and those little things that matter to you are based on your industry, your company, what matters to you, and how you choose to organize it. But the really cool thing is this is a lot of automation and orchestration. It's real time, it's fast, and you have to have things really well thought out in order to be successful at this. And to me, that's kind of mind-boggling because you could work your entire career in one niche of cyber. Cyber is a big word, it's like art. But to have all of this come together and to have it work is like pretty cool. You need to understand it's not a firewall. It's not a magic answer. It's about a 5 to 10 year strategy to pull all of this across. You've heard people talk about how hard identity is. Identity is a big component of this. So in order to do this, there's a lot of things that go into it. So I think it's really fascinating. I hope you do too. There's a lot of great documentation out there if you want to learn more. I know this is really hard to read in that small of a slide, but if you take a look, you're taking a look at users, devices, networks, applications, payloads, data, orchestration and automation, and some analytics. Now, what I do, I'm really fortunate. I get to see a lot of things that are up and coming, and I appreciate that. You may not have access to the same things, but I can also tell you a lot of these platforms, the divisions between them, even in just identity, are starting to blur because a lot of the platforms are offering some of the same things. So now you have to think about how am I going to lay out these puzzle pieces? What's going to give me which component? And you want to make sure you're not leaving any of those gaps because it's the gaps that the people looking to do the hijinks are looking for. And to me, that's really a lot of fun. My mind works in sarcasm, and it also works in reverse engineering. So you tell me I can't do it, of course I'm going to try it. I just can't help it. I don't know. The thing I also like about this industry is right when you think that I get this, it changes. And that's kind of mind-blowing, right? So that brings me to the notion of identity hijacking. Now that's not really new. We've had impersonation and things like that, but what's the hot topic? AI. Of course I have to weave AI into a presentation because you can't do a cyber presentation without including AI if you're anybody, obviously. So how many people have heard about this? The finance worker that transferred $25 million. Anyone familiar with this? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of mind-blowing, right? So for those of you who aren't familiar, this gentleman got an email asking to transfer $25 million. It's like, yeah, this is a phishing email. I'm not falling for that. No way, no how. I'm pretty sharp. Well, yeah, then good for you. So he decided I'm not falling for it. So the CFO was like, why don't we hop on a video conference call and we'll talk it through. So he joins the call, and there's a number of his colleagues. I think there's like 3 or 4 or something, and they have the conversation. And he's like, no, I would like you to transfer the money. The CFO is there. They have the agreement. They talk it through. He's in the WebEx call. He can see everyone, or which WebEx, Teams, whichever. It's a live conversation, so he goes ahead and transfers the money. And you know exactly where this is going, right? It was AI generated. They weren't real people. So he knew not to fall for the phishing. he got on the video call and he actually transferred the money. And it's like, this is a whole new level. So thinking back to that zero trust where everything is going to be authenticated and authorization, how do you know it's real? Especially now that everything is digital, how do you know it's real? That's the cool thing about this industry. If you can use it for good, you can use it for bad. If you can use it for bad, you can use it for good. This brings up the concept of identity proofing. The problem with identity proofing, especially since it's digital, sure, we have a number of things. I can push something, SMS, however you want to do it, but it still doesn't mean the person on the other end of that device is who they say they are. That was a really tough concept for me to understand. You tell me you're nice, I believe it, because why would you tell me something that's not true? We're back to this zero trust. So how are you going to authenticate something that's digital? We're going to use AI, and that's some pretty cool stuff. So trying to understand how to do this, how to prove it, and if you don't know who they are, how it's tied to, you don't want to let them in. But again, it's now digital, and this is a whole new realm. Generative AI for authentication. And that's pretty cool. And I have seen some of the ways that this is going about and being proven, and it's pretty cool. But it's using some of these same principles where it's constant, continual, adaptive authentication, not the one time, but constantly posture checking, coming back, using both voice and speech recognition. So if you went back quite a while to Enron, when all of that data became available, they made it available publicly, and it really became the whole cache of information that was made available for electronic discovery. And one of the things that people did is they took all the audio calls, and if you don't recall, it was a while ago, there were a lot of audio calls where they're doing rolling blackouts of utilities, and they started using code words. So if you took all of that audio and you made it available, you could search it, but it also could search it so you wouldn't have to sit and listen to all 4,000 hours of audio calls. You could now do like a Google search, and it would bring you right to that point you were looking for. It would also be able to decipher accents and all of these things. So when you start to use all these properties and you use it to determine, are you who you say you truly are? Even digitally, there's different ways you can do this. So I purposely picked a picture of Mark Zuckerberg because I'm not convinced he's real. He looks like a cyborg. He doesn't even look human. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to have to try this generative AI to see if he is who he says he is. But there's some really cool things when you can start to use voice recognition, but you can also use voice recognition for bad. You've heard the different stories about if you say yes, they're going to record it and use it to do different things. There's also facial recognition, multi-factor authentication based on different things. Now the bad thing is for anyone who likes bio, I hate biometrics, but now that we have AI, it's just going to be stolen that much easier, so maybe people will stop using it. But again, using that continuous adaptive, not the one time, but it's being able to start to determine anomalies, the same thing with constant monitoring, your SIM, any of those things, but also anything that's an indicator of deep fakes. And I do know some of the testing that's going on to try to determine, was this generated by AI or is it a person? And there's some ways to try to determine that, because you have to come up with some of these solutions because the industry is changing, and that's the thing about this and why I like it. Every time you start to figure it out, it's going to throw you a curveball. That's kind of cool. Some of the indicators, if you didn't know, if somebody's in a video and you want to know if they're real or not, has anybody heard some of these things, how to detect? Ask them to stick their tongue out, because they have a hard time resolving when somebody sticks their tongue out. The other thing you can do is ask them to turn their head from side to side, because for some reason it can't make the motion of your eye moving, and so people look a little wonky. And so just by knowing a couple of those weird little glitches, now you're all going to be paranoid when you're in your next video conference call and somebody has a little glitch. You're like, whoa, are you real? But it's kind of creepy to know that you can't even tell if somebody's human or not human. I don't know. How's that going to change the dating game? It's a little scary to think about, right? I don't know. So even if you don't successfully navigate relationships, there's things to learn about it and take from them. And so I hope that these are some of the things I've been able to share with you today. But a couple other things that I want to share with you. As I've gone about this, I've started to realize a couple things. And this is one of my favorite things I saw on a t-shirt: embrace the suck. Life doesn't always follow a plan, and people would ask me when they would learn what I did in electronic discovery, hey, that's cool, did you go to school for that? No, it didn't even exist when I was in school. So you could decide, I'm gonna focus on a career, and I'm gonna pick it because of something, but you don't know what's gonna exist in 5 years or 10 years, but that's not necessarily bad. It could be something really cool. I also wanna tell you that when you're having your worst day, some of the best things come out of the most unfortunate situations. You don't know it at the time. You don't realize, how is this going to be something? If you get punched in the face, you remember that feeling and you want to avoid it. And so when something bad happens, you start to realize, wait a minute, let me learn from this. The rate of change in this industry and the world in general is incredibly fast. And I think in this latest lifetime or generation, it's faster than it's ever been. And I don't know how much the human mind is equipped to keep up with this rate of change, but we're starting to see things like burnout. But even think about a simple worker at Starbucks or a drive-thru or whatever with all of these apps. It used to be a time that you'd have to get in line, I'll make your burger, whatever it is. Now anyone from anywhere can order on an app and you have to be able to make it happen. That's a complete game changer. Has anybody thought about what's the rate of humanly possible to just work at Starbucks or Burger King with all of this rapid increase? Like, that's right there pretty huge. One thing I think is really interesting is learning how to think strategically and big picture. And you can't become strategic until you know the details and the small pieces. Ira Winkler, he's a pretty well-known authority in the cyber industry, and he has a book out there, and it's called You Can Stop Stupid. And I had it sitting on my bookshelf, and he actually wrote a post on it recently again about all of the things that we're doing. You can stop it, but you have to think about big picture. And a lot of times people want to go with that quick solution. They want to do that one little piece, and that's so true in cybersecurity. I'm going to put up this firewall and think about nothing else. Oh, what do you mean it got in a different way? Oh, what do you mean it was somebody from the inside? And that's the thing, and why it's so easy to do some of these breaches is because even though you think you have it all, somebody just has to find that one little piece. The other thing I think is really important to know is situational awareness. I'm not trying to be dramatic. There's a book out there that's called The Gift of Fear. It's by Gavin de Becker. If you're bored sometime, look up Gavin de Becker. The book was out in about the 70s, but it's still available. My brother told me to read it, and it's all about the gift of fear and how in that moment when you make a decision can determine whether you live or you don't live. And especially as a female, as you travel, if you travel alone, we don't want to hurt people's feelings because we don't want anyone to think that we're not nice. So when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, would you like me to help you carry your groceries? People don't want to say no because they might offend somebody. Now think about this. Here's a perfect stranger that you're never probably going to see again, and you don't want to hurt their feelings. If that person offers to carry your groceries or to help you or to the car or whatever it is, now they have you in a corner, and you have to think about, what am I going to do? So if you can think of some of these things in advance, that's some pretty strong situational awareness. As you go out into the world, watch how many people aren't paying attention because they're walking and looking at their phone. Is there an app for walking now? Because I see everyone walking like this. There's so many things going past you when you're behind that phone. There's some really good opportunities just sitting out here at the tables. People would walk by. I'm on the board at InfraGard, so I'm out here at one of the tables. People don't ask you, what do you do? Who do you work for? How did you learn? And you're like, oh, I'd be happy to help you. And they walk by. They don't say hello. There's no please. There's no thank you. I'm like, if you stop, I could be somebody who might be able to give you something that you don't currently have. And I'm not always talking just about something physical, but that's really the beauty of this. So I'm really trying to impress upon you to grow your network. I have gotten my last, I think, 3 jobs based on people who knew me, understood how I showed up, understood the quality work that I do, trying to mail 1,000 or online 1,000 applications, and you start to feel like I don't matter. Go meet somebody who can bring you along with them. It's a game changer. The other thing, giving back to the community is pretty special. There's some people in this room who've had a really significant influence on me, and I'm really grateful for that. I'll share a little bit shortly. Keep learning, keep growing, keep your sense of humor. Again, my mind works in sarcasm, but I also have to be careful then when I'm responding to somebody, because if I say the first thing that comes to my mind, it's going to be biting and I can't take it back. And it might seem like some funny little quip to me, but if I say it in a moment of anger and I hurt somebody, I can't take that back. And so as you take all of these things and you realize the importance of communication, I was sitting next to somebody last night during the social network, and he talked about he wants to get into cyber, but he currently works in communications. I'm like, you already have some gifts and some talents to connect, and you don't even realize, especially in this industry, not everyone can communicate, or you're so brilliant that when you give a presentation, it's up here. There's a number of people I've seen that are really brilliant, and I get so excited watching them, but they're up here and the audience is down here, and I'm like, can I just help you bring it down a little bit because I don't want them to miss your magic? So if you have that gift, it's already a leg in, it's huge. Anytime you do an implementation, every time you do a change, you want to make sure those end users can come along with it. There's a gentleman who talked about identity yesterday and why it's so important to be able to explain it to them and have them understand it. Because when people don't understand identity, what do? They bypass it. I'm that person, absolutely. I'm going to bypass it. I'm going to do some stuff I shouldn't, and now we're going to be in a hot mess. Keep your sense of humor. It's really important. And lastly, this is my dog, Lilo. She's a rescue. I had no idea what I was getting into when I got a rescue. They don't really tell you. It's like the used car lot. Just take it home. It'll be easy. You'll love it. There's no owner's manual for a rescue. But it's really taught me a lot. She's had a lot of trauma, and so it's really good for me to learn patience and kindness, and there's times when that's more important than anything, and she's pretty special, and she is chipped, so I think that's really important. And even if you can't pull some of these things off, because we're all different, no one's better or worse than anyone, we just have different spots in the path or the journey, and we have different skill set. Find out what you're good at, find out what you're not so good at, and try to stick to those things you're good at, but get to know yourself. I want to give you this as well. If you can't find anything and you're just in that moment of angst and you want to give up, check out Olivia Rodrigo. She's made how much money simply by writing songs about her angst and dating, and she's made a ton of money. So if I would have just thought about that and gone out into the world and told my story, she's made a ton of money and she's got a lot of awards, and she's pretty talented. I never thought about that. That's actually pretty brilliant. So sometimes even when you're in the bottom of embracing that suck, you'd be amazed what comes to you. The last thing I want to share with you, being on the board of InfraGuard, we get to go to the shooting range. And what I think is really cool is when I was at the shooting range, I haven't been around a lot of guns in my life, but we got in line and we were going to come shoot this gun. And I said, I don't want to. And the FBI agent said to me, I'm going to give you a challenge today, and I'm going to ask you to step out of your comfort zone. And I didn't want to, because I don't like loud noises. It hurts my ears. It makes me afraid. It gives me anxiety, and that's a pretty loud gun. And I said, I don't want to. And I started to back up. And so as you watch people's language, when they start to back up, it's because they're uncomfortable. And I started to back up. And there's somebody in this room who had my back and told me, no, we do this together because we're a team. And I'm here to make sure that you can do this and give you the support that you need to be able to do this and be successful at it. He also loaded my magazines. I don't know how to load a magazine. I'm surprised I know what a bullet is. The first thing I asked, is there a safety on this? And the FBI agent goes, safety? Maybe this ain't the movies. I don't know. I thought guns had safeties. That's what they always say. He's like, no. So anyhow, there is somebody here who we joke. We do a lot of things together. He teaches me a lot. I teach him a lot. But he encouraged me. Thank you for your service, Dan. He's been in the service, helped give us our freedom. But he had my back when I was trying to back away because I wasn't comfortable. And that's what good people do. They bring you along. They give you the courage to be successful, to help you to go out there. And I want to encourage you that even if you're kind of shy, get out there, meet some people, get involved in the community. There's so many different organizations. but you never know when that one person's going to see how you show up, the difference you make, and give you that opportunity that's a complete game changer. There you go. Thank you so much. This is my email. You're welcome to send me an email. I'd be more than happy to be a mentor to help you, to help bring you along with me or give back in any way I can. We'd love to have you be a member of InfraGard, or if there's any other way I can help position you, I'm more than happy to. And with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. Any questions? Are you guys like stumped? Remember, I have the $100 here. Who even started these? It's like counterfeit $100. So anyhow, if you're interested in Zero Trust, it really doesn't matter what aspect of cyber you work in. I think it's pretty brilliant because it covers all of them, and it's real time, and it's pretty cool. And there's a lot of great information out there. I shared with you some slides from CISA, Department of Defense, and I had a colleague who co-authored a book on it. His name's Jerry Chapman, and the funny thing is there's 2 Jerry Chapmans that write about Zero Trust. Who knew? But anyhow, thank you so much for the time, and if you're kind of shy and don't want to ask questions here, you can catch me down there. Keep learning and keep your sense of humor. Thank you.